recorded in the beautiful mountains of British Columbia. Welcome to
Friends on Horses.
Welcome back to Friends on Horses. Our guest today is the fabulous Karen Rohlf. Karen has competed at a Grand Prix level in dressage, is a professional horse trainer and coach, and is the founder of Dressage Naturally. Dressage Naturally is an online learning platform that combines two of Karen's loves, natural horsemanship and dressage, into a training system and methodology that has helped many people develop a better relationship with their horse. She has taught clinics around the world and has many certified Dressage Naturally instructors. Her system also puts an emphasis on biomechanics, helping riders achieve lightness and their horses achieve comfort and longevity. We are excited to learn more about Karen's methods and journey. Karen has also generously offered to discount one of her training courses for the Friends on Horses listeners. Stay tuned for more info about this offer at the end of the podcast. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I thought we could just start off at the beginning. I was curious on when you fell in love with horses.
I can't remember a time that I wasn't. I mean, it really goes back early. My parents joked that my first words I said were, "I want a horse," then mom and then dad, So yeah, I mean, it was really, really deep. I just can't remember not wanting. I was always an animal person, and just horses predate my memory. So yeah.
Awesome. And did your parents have horses too, or how did you wrangle them into letting you be a horse girl?
Yeah, well, it was, my mom did have a horse when she was a kid. She grew up in California, and she just had a horse that she'd like jump on bareback and go riding out. And then we moved to New York when I was 4, and my mom did want to try English. So she had a horse when I was around 7 years old. I had already been doing, day camps with horses and things like that, and some neighbor kids had horses. So when I was 7, I got to play around with my mom's horse. It was actually, I'm glad I'm still alive, because my mom used to just send me down. We rented some property at the end of our street, and she just like, go groom Bart, and I'd go down there and I'd groom him, but I do all this other stuff too that she never knew about, like just climb on him in the pasture, and so I had a beautiful unsupervised year with horses, and then summer camp, and she sold him because us kids were too busy, but she definitely was open enough, and I think I'd proven the desire was not going away. So when I was 12, when I was in 6th grade, 12 years old, she finally melted, and I got my first horse, my cute little horse. So that was it. Never looked. I'm sure she thought I was going to outgrow it, but never did.
That's my first horse. I got at 12, and my mother, it was one of those, well, if you can pay for it, you can have it. And then that happened, and then she went, oh crap.
Yeah.
This is going to be a lifelong thing. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah, at the place where we rented, it was just 4 acres. It didn't have electricity. It didn't even have running water. It had a hand pump. Wow. And, I think after the first winter, when I carry hot water down on a sled, the 3/4 of a mile to the horse every morning before school, I think she's like, oh, I think she's kind of into this.
She's serious.
I was like, of course, whatever we need to do here. So
That's wonderful. And I'm also curious, so dressage and natural horsemanship traditionally have been in 2 very different camps. So let's talk a bit about how you ended up taking those 2 things and combining them into your current training system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it makes perfect sense when you kind of see the whole story. So I'm just stumbling because I'm like, wow, that's a big jump ahead. I think because I started so natural with horses, like I said, I just had property and I was let loose to run wild with my horse, instead of having all my horse education be in a riding school or something very formal. So I was always really connected to my horses, really playful with my horses, and did a lot of just hanging around with my horses. So when I did dressage, um, I did have formal instruction, and then, you know, became a professional, so had to really, you know, act that certain way. But I could always remember what it was like to have that special connection. And the first horse that I did dressage with, I actually still kept back in those 4 acres. And then I'd go once a week for dressage lessons. And now we went all the way up through the levels and represented the United States on the young rider team by doing that. So he really was the bridge. And there were certain things that I would do with him that were very quote unprofessional, and you know, I'd let him do whatever he wanted to do on Mondays, you know, and you know, and I'd still ride around on him bareback and go to the beach. And he gave me so much. Like, that was a horse that really shouldn't have gone as far as he did. And I always thought, well, he is just the most special horse. Like, how lucky that, you know, I could get a 7-year-old off the track thoroughbred with a bowed tendon, and we could both learn to do, you know, all the way up in dressage, and he'd compete and do all this stuff. Like, wow, what a special horse. And then full circle, you know, later, so that I became a professional and had other horses in training and a lot more talented horses. And I would still look back and go, wow, you know, that thoroughbred Tom, what a special horse he was, because he wasn't a born dressage horse, and he still gave me so much. And here are these super athlete horses that I'm riding, and I'm like, they're hard and they're not motivated. Like, why is this, you know, why are they not giving as much as Tom did? And through a series of events and starting to learn a little bit about natural horsemanship, when I started doing more natural horsemanship with my dressage horses, they all started giving in that special way. And I went, oh, it wasn't the horses that were the problem. I stopped being a certain way. I stopped being a partner with my horse, and I started being professional. And I was a professional trainer. And I had technique, I had experience. I mean, I learned a lot about how to get a horse to Grand Prix, but I was missing something that I didn't realize how important that was until I started feeling it again. And I realized that it was the piece of me being just a kid in love with horses, and then adding the technique onto that. And that's what natural horsemanship, it rekindled that. So it was immediate, like, oh man, I feel this again. I need to know more. But there's techniques for this. Oh my gosh, there's like strategies, you know? And so that's what, it got my attention, and I just had to keep going. So for me, it was an absolute no-brainer. As soon as I started putting them together and I saw the little glint in the eye, the life come on in this one particular horse, I went, oh, now I get it. Now every horse feels special like that first horse did.
It's really interesting to me. I too had a pony growing up that I did dressage on. He was not supposed to be good at dressage at all. And we had just a fantastic connection. And since he passed on, I find myself constantly looking for him in the new horses that have come into my life. And so what you're saying really resonates in a way, and it's kind of given me this pause almost of wondering, okay, is it really that I'm looking for that in the horses, or that I need to just take a step back and look for that in myself again?
Yeah, it's hard because, you know, when you learn some things, you unlearn other things. And I think sometimes there are really special horses, you know, there is just that chemistry. So I don't want, you know, you to feel like, oh man, it's all my fault, because it is, you know, it is a blend, but time and time and time and time again, it's usually me. It's, you know, it's like when I think about the special, you know, you have the special days where it just all goes well. I have to think, it's the same, you know, what I had to have been different. So I always kind of go from the perspective of, of course they're going to be amazing until I ask them for something that they can't do, So in a way, it's always my fault. So, like, well, I didn't mess that one up, But I think it's in a good way. It's to think it's amazing that any of this happens. They're always perfect. They're perfect until we come along. And the game is, can I have some ideas and get this creature who just wants to go hang out and graze to do some stuff with me? And I think when I think of it that way, it's more respectful. I remember that it really is up to me. No matter how much I know, how many horses I've done it with, they don't know that. They don't care. They just want to know in this moment what's happening. And I think once we've had some success, we then have expectations on ourselves and on the horse. And it's really hard to go back to that state of mind where you're just so excited for any progress. I mean, I remember writing in my diary the first time I did a leg yield, because I was like, horses go sideways. I remember being a kid going, I had no idea that a horse could go sideways and I could ask it to do it. And I remember drawing like a leg yield, like, dear diary, this is freaking cool. And I try to keep that spirit, because even if it's my 20th horse that I brought to FEI, it's that horse's first time. And I think horses sometimes go home to their stalls and they go to their pasture mate and they go, dude, I can go sideways. I mean, and that's one of the questions I in my clinics and stuff, I ask my students, I'm like, all right, at the end of this session, when your horse goes back and talks to his friends, what do you want him to say that he just did? And I think that changes a little bit how you play, so.
I love that. And that actually brings me to a question that I was going to ask later on, but hey, why not now? You mentioned state of mind, and talking to our friend Michelle, she was saying that's one thing that she really loves about your training techniques is an emphasis on state of mind when you're going into working with a horse, regardless of what horse it is and the issues that you're trying to tackle. Is what's your state of mind? So I'm curious, for people who don't know much about that, I'd love a little bit more information on how you manage your state of mind and what you look for.
I think the big question, I love the question. It's a life's work, by the way. So one thing that I like to say is, horses make us happy, but they shouldn't have to, right? So we know that horses are therapeutic, but I also know that, like, they didn't ask for any of this. So it's really my responsibility to show up in at least not a negative way, And so that's number one, is to kind of be responsible for myself. I don't want to have a grumpy day and, have one of those stomp and snort kind of day and they go, finally I get to be out with my horse, he'll make me feel better. I'm like, he will, but I think the horses deserve us to be at our best. So how do we do that? I think there's lots of different techniques, but the goal is to be able to be present in this moment. And so then you have to think, well, what are some things that prevent us from being in that moment? Not being able to control your focus, what you're focusing on. Are you still thinking about that guy that cut you off, 20 minutes ago, or what your husband said, or anybody? So can you have the ability to stay in the present moment and compartmentalize, go, I've got this big project I got to work on, and I'm going to put that over there because now I'm with my horse. To be able to stay curious. So I love that you said you were curious about this question, because curious is one of the most important things. So when frustration comes in, changing it to curiosity is really important. And there's techniques for that, like ask yourself a question. And then you have to ask yourself the right kind of question. So if you're having trouble with something, a question that would not be very helpful would be, why do I suck? You know, why is this so hard? You know, because then your brain's going to go, let me tell you all the reasons why this is really hard for you. But if you ask a question like, horse, how can I help you with this? Or I wonder what else I could do. You know, a question like that. And just if you can just stop and ask yourself a question that makes yourself more curious, because then your brain will go, I don't know, how could I make this better? So you know, it's lots of things folded in. Let me see, curiosity, being in the moment. Those are big ones. Yeah, I'm sure I'll think of more, because it is a big subject. And so for every person, everybody's a little different. Everybody has their reason why they're not in a good state of mind. There could be an infinite number of reasons why that. So I think about making a mental commitment to try to be your best. And just before you approach your horse, just stop for 10 seconds, take a breath, and know what's the intention of what you're about to do. And I think if you can even remember to do that, set an alarm on your phone and just go, oh yeah, what am I doing? So you don't just go out there and move around for 45 minutes and then you go away and your horse is like, you know, I think that you got to be there and interesting and able to communicate. And I think a lot of times our human brains are just in a million other places. And horses, I think they look at that and go, it makes no sense.
Very true. I love what you said even at the beginning there. You briefly said, you know, people having a bad day, and then, oh, I'm going to go out and my horse is going to make it better. That puts a lot of pressure on the situation, and that puts a lot of pressure on our horses.
It does. And I mean, that doesn't mean that, you know, if I'm having a bad day, yeah, I'll go out and hug my horse.
Yeah.
You know, so there's nothing wrong with that. I think, you know, it should be a really good feedback loop, though. You know, it doesn't need to be a one-way street. And I think, oh, I remembered one other important thing is the gratitude. You know, turning your expectations into appreciations. And, you know, I do my best. I'm not 100% with this, but I really do my best when I'm riding. Instead of saying, good, you know, good boy, I'll try to say, thank you. You know, and that, like, try that. There's a trick. Try this at home, folks. You know, next time when you want to praise your horse for something, you know, instead of thinking, good boy, just think, thank you so much. You know, it really changes the energy and kind of reminds us of what I said before, is like, it's sort of it's their gift that they do this at all. None of this is their idea. So
that kind of leads us into a question that I wanted to pose to you. I'm wondering if you can go into just the 9 habits of excellent horsemanship that you put forward.
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. And we've actually already talked about a bunch of them because they can't not come up. So yeah, I made this course. It's actually I have a course called 9 Habits for Excellent Horsemanship, and it's really the beginning course, and it's the last one I made because I couldn't figure out exactly how to explain all of this. It's such a big subject. And when I came up with these 9 habits, and the idea of it is, instead of, a lot of times courses, you go, okay, do step 1. And then when you get that, you'll do step 2, and then you'll 3, 4, and then at some point you'll have achieved something. And I have courses like that too. But for this one, it was such a, you know, what is horsemanship? And I thought, you know, there's some horsemen who don't know anything. There's some people who don't really know techniques, but they get around a horse and they've got it. You know what I mean? It's like the horses love them and they can just do stuff with them. And then there's other people who might learn and do all the techniques and have all the theory, and they get around the horse and it just doesn't work. They don't have the magic. So that's what I tried to focus on. I thought, all right, what are the things that make a horseman a horseman? So I start with that. Like, so in the course, we start with, I have audios of all these things because I want this to be infused in your brain. So this is great. You guys have a podcast because your listeners can get these right away. And then it's like, okay, let's have the habits, because you can practice these habits away from your horse. This is key. And then we create a vision of, right, well, what do you want to have happen? And then with these habits and the vision, a lot of times you'll get 80% there just with that. And then for whatever you get stuck on, then we can learn some techniques, but those techniques are going to be much more pinpointed. Oh, I need that technique to be able to help me with this thing. So that was a long way around, and now I'll give you the habits. In no particular order, but partnership, number one. Well, I say partnership, no order, but partnership number one. So and the idea of partnership is if you lead with your heart, your horse will follow. So that's the one-liner for that. Another one is clarity. And I think about clarity coming from an intention passing through a mind without judgment and a body without brace and a heart that's open. And so kind of connecting before, if you're thinking about what happened at work, you're not going to be able to be clear, right? Another habit is a reflex to relax. Everything comes from and returns to relaxation. Another is, and actually these apply to the person and the horse, by the way. Another habit is to nurture curiosity. And every time you nurture curiosity, you're opening wider the doorway to all possibilities, right? Because if you're not going, I wonder how else I could do this, you're not going to see this other option that's right next to you. Another habit is to explore time and timing. You know, and there's a huge subject, but just to kind of remind yourself, you know, it could be timing as far as giving cues and body language, but it also could be time, meaning how long are you allowing or expecting? It could be, this is not the right time to bring this up with your horse, or it could be, you know, it is time and you've been putting it off. So just to kind of sit back and go, is there anything around timing that I could think about? Oh, and you can think of there's only one, the only time to act is now, but there are actually many nows to choose from. So that's the Zen, that's the Zen definition around there. Another habit is to seek communication. So we want to be able to control, because sometimes we need to control to keep a horse safe or to keep ourselves safe, but that the art of communication is really the language of leadership. You know, so there's a lot of methods that are 100% control based. And there's some methods that are 100% never control. And I believe in this world, in the reality that most of us live in, we have to be able to control sometimes, because we have highways and things that we don't want our horse to run across. So sometimes we have to go, I'll teach you about this later, but right now, please follow the feel. Speaking of feel, that's another one of the habits. So things around feel, and that could be feeling for your horse, feeling, you know, what can you learn from what your horse is feeling like? What does your horse make you feel like? What do you feel like to your horse? You know, so the feeling, it can be tactile. Again, it can be aids. It can be, you know, way you deliver your touch, but it also could be how you're feeling on the inside. It could be emotional. You know, sometimes horses can seem relaxed. They're standing still, their head's down, their ears are half back, but they don't feel relaxed, right? You can be halted on a horse that's like ready to explode. So remember to feel things and to think about how you feel to them. Another one is consistency and variety. So to know, and this is a little bit more on the, you know, you have to educate yourself about, or to pay attention to really, is how you're using consistency and variety. because you want to be consistent without being boring, and you want to offer variety without being random. And we all tend to have our habits. Some people tend to be more random and exciting, and other people tend to be more consistent, but maybe a little boring. And the last one is a sense of humor, and having the habit of a sense of humor, because I think horsemanship and life are lessons in lightness, not just light in the feel, but lighthearted, and that you can get serious results without having to be so serious all the time. So those are the habits, and I'm sure there's more, but that's as narrowed down as I could get it to feel like if you could just really think about these, there's so many answers that can be found by just taking a minute to notice these in yourself, and then think about how you can go deep into any one of these things.
Wonderful. That's making me think about my friend group riding when we were kids, and Mira and I were we were both friends as we were kids. I feel like a lot of these things we were better at when we were younger, and that's, you know, a lot of the magical memories that we have as horse people. And as Mira was talking about earlier, you know, kind of chasing that first horse, I almost wonder if that's because we're always chasing those experiences that we used to have that felt so magical, because we were a lot more open and flexible, and had maybe these qualities a little bit closer to down when we were younger, you know?
Yeah, don't get any better. You guys look so young. Don't tell me you're losing some of this now. Yeah. There's a reason for midlife crises. You know, the reason is enough of this stuff piles up and people go, wait, no more, right? And then, you know, where you have your spiritual breakthrough, where you go, you know, so I think you really hit the nail on the head there. Is so many times when we're young and we're just playing with our horses and we're just feeling stuff and we're not thinking as much, and we don't have the self-consciousness or the, you know, you should do it this way, or, you know, we haven't been on Facebook yet to see all the right ways of doing it and the wrong ways of doing it. So yeah, we just live in this state, and I think that's so many people's journey, and I think luckily horses will nudge us along on this journey, because it matters. Like, why isn't my horse going well? Well, you got work to do, honey. You know, so to nudge you along on this journey of, you know, sometimes people won't do it for themselves. They won't try to relax just for themselves, but if they see that their horse needs it, well, they'll go take meditation lessons just to be better for our horses. So I think that's one of the ways that horses really help motivate us to do the things we need to do. But yeah, I think a lot of the best horsemanship and best humanmanship is to not let life pile on. Not let life pile on, not to accumulate minds with judgment and bodies with brace and hearts that are closed because you've been hurt once, so you don't want to be hurt again. You know, so you have fear, you fall off once, you got to clear that, because it's real. It will stay. It stays in your body. It stays in your mind. That's just reality. That's how humans are made. And so for me, personal development and horsemanship you can't separate them. When I do personal development for myself, my horsemanship is better. When I'm a better horseman, I'm better in life. And when I apply horsemanship to life, I'm better. When I apply good lifemanship skills to, you know, with my horse, it's better. So for me, I can't not be in personal development at all times in different ways. And it doesn't matter what it is. It's the noticing what's getting in between you and your horse. What's getting in between you and your heart, number one. And then what's getting in the way between you and your horse. And if you can strip away all this stuff, then it's just technique and physical skill, which is, that's the easy part.
It's true.
It's the, you know, practice, you know, and some horses make it more or less easy or challenging, but that's where, you know, these habits if you can usually trace back to one of these, and if there's something you can do about it, then you got to do about it. And then, yeah, you still need to practice how to sit properly and get your hips open and do some things. But most of the times that I see students getting really stuck, it's this stuff. There's something getting in the way. And when they're in a playful mood and they can feel and they've learned how to relax and they know how to be a clear communicator, then it's just someone saying, hey, remember, keep your left shoulder back. Okay, practice that. Okay, maybe you need to do some yoga or Pilates, or, you know, that's the easier part of horses, is the technical part. The mindset and the not feeling all the stuff inside here is usually the big blocks, I find. With myself and my students. I'm not perfect. I only know this because I have to keep thinking about it.
I love that. So this course, as a little plug, would be great for all of you out there who are finding you've hit a wall maybe and need to do some self-reflection, and that will help you kind of evolve and grow and push through to that next level that you're looking for.
Yeah, and what's cool is, like I said, the whole first part of the course is really just some individual audios about this, and we kind of get into that intention of the course, and then it goes right into horse stuff. But also what I tried to do, because there's other horsemanship courses out there, but I thought, what are the moments that people are missing? So I always like to feel like, how can I help? Like, what's the piece that I don't think is out there? So what I found is sometimes, well, this is a mistake I made at first, is I would go get my horse and I groom him, and then I'd go to the certain area, and then I'd start practicing my horsemanship. And until there was a particular horse that's like, you know, horsemanship starts when you start thinking about your horse before you even leave the house. So I showed examples of using this kind of horsemanship way of doing things with your horse in the stuff that's usually in between the stuff when people think they're working with a horse. It's catching, feeding, tacking. And it's not like how to tack your horse, it's how to tack your horse in a partnership way, and how to use these things so that all these in between moments, so whether you're riding your horse yet, or if your horse is on stall rest, it works even better. It's all these in between moments and the sort of basic things, doing them with this intention, and then how good could it get? And then that's going to help everything. So I tried to make it really universal and not something that would necessarily add an extra thing that people have to go do, because horsemanship is not an exercise you go practice in the round pen. Oh, I'm doing horsemanship, I need a round pen. It's how you're setting things from before you even go out to your horse, and then it's how you walk out in the pasture. Because I had a horse that taught me that. I go out in the pasture thinking, oh, I'm going to do my flying changes today, and he'd take a look at me and he'd get the other 3 horses and go, come on, let's run. And I realized with him, I had to go out there thinking about, I'd go out there and I name all the other horses. I'd be like, oh, River, you're so beautiful. Oh, Luna, look at you. Oh, you're so beautiful. And then Monty is the horse that I'm talking about. He'd be like, what about me? I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll talk to you later. Oh, this other horse, you're so beautiful. And Monty would be like, hey, what about me? I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll play with you, sure. You know, because he taught me how much he could hear me thinking about stuff I was going to do with him. And he'd be like, that doesn't sound like fun. But if I just came out really open, he'd actually be asking me. And I was like, that's freaking cool, I think. Because I didn't do anything differently. It was just how I was thinking. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I've got another question for you, unless you have anything to add to that.
No, go ahead.
All right. So, and I think it's an appropriate time to ask it, because we're talking about previous horses. And I want to talk about chassis for a moment. Was it chassis?
Oh, chassis.
Yeah. So going through your bio, and we both really enjoyed, by the way. You said, chassis taught me that I am responsible for my horse's life experience. We all are. And that resonated with me. And I'm sure that that probably resonates with a lot of people out there.
Mhm.
How do you feel about talking a little bit more about what that means and a little bit more about that lovely horse?
Oh, Chessie. Yeah. Yeah, that was my first horse. And he was just perfect kid's horse. Make a million mistakes. Just sweet. Um, just real backyard $600 out of the classified ads in the local paper. But he was awesome. And yeah, so when I made a decision, I was like outgrowing him. And it was a really hard decision for a kid to make, but I kind of knew what I wanted to go do. And I thought it was a great deal because my neighbor, who also rode, was looking. She got permission to get a horse. I thought this is great because he'll be right there. I'll get to hang out with him still. And it was until it wasn't, because this girl, she just did what she was told. So she had a different trainer and wanted to do different things. And suddenly it was supposed to become this competition horse, this sway back quarter horse they were going to try to make into some equitation horse, and draw reins and sharp bits and spurs. And he got really aggressive. And it got to the point where I was scared of him. And it was looking back then, like I just didn't know. I'm just like, he's mean now. And then one summer when we were away, we came back and he wasn't there. And then he'd been sort of given to the local horse dealer. And I, as a kid, I guess I was pretty shy and quiet, and I wasn't the type of kid to go, hey, what happened? It's just like, he's gone. But it kind of haunted me. It sticks with me. And then later, as I became a professional, I was like, why do I not like doing horse sales? And it really affected me. And it took me a long time. It seems really obvious now, but it took me a long time to connect the dots and go, oh yeah, because if I sell it, then something bad's going to happen to it. So I know that that's not true now. And I know I have sold some horses for other people where I placed them. I really connected them with their new human, and it felt really good. So I just know that, here was this horse. He was a complete innocent. He came and played with me for a while. I'm sure he didn't think I was perfect, but he was a happy camper. And one little change, one big change. Environment was the same. Everything was the same, just choices. What that person chose to ask that horse to do, chose to ask him to do things he couldn't do, was enough to make him aggressive. So I'm sure that he didn't go to some happy home. I don't know. And I try not to picture the worst, but like, wow, that was a human choice that just ruined that horse's life. So I think we have to be aware of that. Like, again, they're innocents. They're just standing around. They don't know. Someone just goes, here, come this way. So that's really in the front of my mind. I have my picture, and he's right here on my laptop. There he is.
Aww.
No, isn't he cute?
He's
Very cute.
He's scotch taped. This is my original picture from whatever year that was, but he's scotch taped to my laptop because it's a good memory. It's a good thing to remember. Like, horses didn't ask for any of this, and they are completely in our control. And if they're having a bad time, it's a human's responsibility to make that horse have a good time. I mean, maybe he needs to go somewhere else. Maybe he needs to do something else. Maybe he needs a different human. So I'm not against horses switching humans, but we got to be really careful. And in the professional industry, there's a lot of horses sold to the wrong people for money. So I think that's if you don't know any better, it's one thing, but when you do know better and you do it for money, that's really bad. So yeah, I could go on and on. What else do you want to know on that?
Well, I think that that was pretty much it. That's what I got out of reading your bio, which I encourage other people to do as well. But I bet there are, in fact, I know there are an awful lot of us out there who've had similar experiences and have those regrets that are really hard to let go of,
Yeah.
you know? So it's,
And we can't always do it. You know, sometimes we do our best. We make a good decision because we think, and you know, then something happens. So, you know, I don't want to. We could all sit here and cry.
Yeah.
You know, but I personally, I can't sell a horse. Unless I really found a match that I knew that, oh my gosh, that person's gonna give it so much more of what it wants than what I can give it. Like, I know that that's possible. But that's just sort of my little commitment to myself, I think. But I think just to really, to really know that to think about it, just to think about it when you're switching a horse's life, you know, or making decisions, because sometimes it isn't a good decision for the horse to be with a particular person. It's not fair. You know, maybe the situation, if I had a horse where what that horse really needed was not what I could provide, then it would be selfish of me to keep it there, you know. But to think about it and go, how can I do my best to get that, do my best to have the horse have a good situation, and then, you know, then it's out of your hands and you gotta just hope. So.
You already kind of touched on Monty a little bit earlier, and about how he really brought you to this place off. Oh, there he is.
So here I have to tell people, watch the YouTube video too, because then you'll get to see all these wonderful horses.
And just how he moved you to authentic communication. I'm wondering if you can just expand on that a little bit and just how that's changed your mindset with horse training in general.
Yeah, Monty he's a cool horse. I got him when I had started to learn a little bit about natural horsemanship, and then I thought, I got to figure out if this really works or not. And then I found this horse, someone was giving away this crazy horse for $1. So I'm like, I'll take him. He's already messed up. So, you know, I can't mess him up more. But he was super intelligent horse. Just some horses just think really differently. And he was one of those, very different. But and so I kind of practiced all the, you know, I learned from Pirelli originally, so I just practiced all that stuff with him. And there was one thing, like, he didn't want to be clipped, so clipping was a big thing. And 3 tranquilizers, 2 people holding him in a twitch, and he'd be like, no. That's not what I did. But, you know, I mean, I watched it. It's like, oh yeah, that's not going to be happening. Sorry. 4:30. Husband question. Okay, yeah. So that's where we started with him with that. And I remember trying to get him better with the clippers. And, you know, he's making progress and making progress. And then there was one day that I was doing stuff with the clippers with him, and I just out in a field, and I got this message. You know, when you get the messages, you guys know what I mean. You just kind of get, we'll call it an idea. Something popped in my head, except the messages, when I get them from the horses, it's like a simple sentence. And I just got this picture of him being at liberty. And I just got this message, like, take the halter off, which would seem like a really illogical thing to do with a horse who's tense around clippers and you're in the middle of a big field. Probably not smart. But I just got the message, and I went with it. You know, I had battery operated clippers. And so I did. I took his halter off, and he completely relaxed. And then I was able to you know, I'd already made some progress, but he let me clip areas that he wasn't letting me clip before. And I was, something about trust, right? Something about communication and not control. Something about, you know, the difference between, it's okay if you don't like this, but I have a halter on, versus, no, it's really okay. It's your choice. So sometimes we say it's your choice, but we have a halter on, you know. And he really taught me that there's another layer to that. And so taking that halter off in that moment, I'm doing it, I'm going, this is really dumb. But I just went with it, and just to feel him feel the difference of, I trust you enough to let the lead rope loose, or I trust you enough to have it off completely. And I'm down by his legs. His legs were where he really had a hardest time getting okay with it. You know, my face is down there. It's everything Pony Club would say, don't do that. But you just feel it. And I thought, wow, he showed me, somebody showed me that. I was so glad that I listened, but that made all the difference with him. It was that, let me have the freedom, and then I can choose to be with you. Felt very different with him than training a horse to stay with me at liberty because I've trained it. Like this was just a give. It was he was saying, trust me. And he chose. So it's stuff, that horse did stuff like that. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That it's interesting talking to you about your this course that you're putting out, and then also connecting the dots to some of these stories, some of these wonderful horses that you were open enough to connect with and be the human that they needed, I guess, is kind of what it looks like to me.
A fraction of the time I get it right. I have a long list of horses to apologize to, you know. Sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I get it right though. And I'm really grateful for those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have a ton of time left, and Mira and I both were talking earlier. We're like, we could keep you all day, but unfortunately, we can't do that.
Talk all day about all this stuff.
So I, because of my own personal selfish interests, I can't leave the conversation without talking about biomechanics a little bit. For people who may not know, why the heck is biomechanics so important to be considering?
The biomechanics is important because it really, you know, every step they take, they can either be jarring and putting undue stress on their bodies, or they can be flowing, and it can actually not only not be hurting them, but it can be literally healthy, because the more they're moving through their body, the better the circulation works, and like all health is circulation, right? So and there's more, any of the stresses can be distributed through their body and not all on their front feet. So there's definitely healthy and unhealthy ways of moving. And I kind of split the unhealthy into two categories. It's just my splitting it. There's no textbook, but I split it into active and inactive unhealthy biomechanics. And how I define it is, inactive is the unhealthiness that you get from not really applying yourself. So I call this the museum walk. I don't know about you guys, maybe you're not old enough yet, but like I can go all day and be really active, and I'll come in at the end of the day and feel good. I might feel tired, but I feel good. Take me to a museum where I have to walk slowly on cement, and my back is killing me. Like my feet hurt, my legs hurt. So there's something about having to go, you know, the museum walk, the mall walk, something like that. It's not athletic. It's not a whole body thing. So inactive would be like the horse that's shuffling around on his front legs, you know, the beginner lesson horse. Yeah, they're just not doing enough. The active unhealthy biomechanics is when there's an active brace. The cartoon of that is somebody pulling on the horse's mouth while spurring them on, right? So things are actively contracting. And so those are the biggest difference. And so what we want to do is, number one, get rid of all the things that are actively causing your horse to have bad biomechanics. So there's things that are getting in the way, and that is a long list. So if the rider's unbalanced, if the saddle doesn't fit, if their feet are too long, if they're scared, if they're confused, if they're braced, if they're crooked, if they're, long list of why a horse might be actively contracting. And then you're left with a horse who's not actively getting in bad biomechanics, and then you're left with just a body, and then you think, okay, what are some things I need to now add in? So the beginner lesson horse might need a little energy. It might need to move around a little bit to find a place of alignment where then they can let go. And so that's kind of how I think of it. Number one, take away the things that are actively messing things up, and things like confusion and fear. This is not just physical, so mental states. And then from there, how can we tempt our horse to be in a motivated, inspired way of moving, right? Because think of when they move the best out in the field, when they're playing, right? When they feel like this is what I want to do. And then so if we have a horse that doesn't have anything actively getting in the way, and they're inspired and motivated, and they understand what you're trying to do, their posture will be improved greatly. And you haven't even done dressage yet, right?
Yeah.
So if you just get them in that state, that's going to get you really close. And then from there are some exercises that I have to try to find better alignment and try to get them to hook on to committing to that energy for longer amounts of time and things like that. And then they're in a really let loose state. So now you can call upon that trot that you see when they're trotting across the pasture and they're all feeling fancy. And then from there, we gymnastically develop and do collection and, fancy stuff. But what I like to provide is, I think, a big chunk of where most dressage books start in the middle. So between the horsemanship course and then what I teach in the sweet spot of healthy biomechanics course, that next layer gets a horse so that when they start doing what we normally think of as dressage, they're already 80% there. They're already balanced and free and like, hey, what are we doing today? And loosen their bodies. And now we do the actual gymnastics. That's my goal. And that's the piece I think I really provide, because I think so many pleasure riders or natural horsemanship or partnership based people go to take a dressage lesson, and too many times it's the wrong instructor and they're just going, get them on the bit, push.
Right.
It's too harsh, and then it's just push. So I really try to help any rider get that free from what's actively getting in the way, and then let loose, balanced, motivated, and that can help jumpers, Western, driving, anything. It's going to help any horse. And then if you want to go further and learn about gymnastics, then you study the art of dressage from there. And of course, the way I teach it, it takes into account the partnership and the psychology. And so we're not throwing all that out when we start doing the movements.
Wonderful. Good answer.
That was a short answer.
So just before we end our conversation today, I'm wondering if you can just briefly tell us a little bit more about your online platform.
Sure, yeah. Well, people can find anything about me can be found through dressagenaturally.net. So that's kind of the home base. You can get to anything from there. And if you go to where it says programs, you'll see all the online programs. And because of what we're talking about today, I just thought it would be fun to point you guys to the Habits for Excellent Horsemanship course. And can I tell them about the special coupon I made for your...
Please do.
So you can find it if you go to dressagenaturally.net/habits. That's the shortcut to go straight to the horsemanship course. And I made a coupon code. So it's all capital letters, SAVE, SAVE, 100, the numbers 100. And it'll get you $100 off the course. So that's for you. And I think that's it. From dressagenaturally.net, you can get to everything. But I just, the horsemanship course I'm pretty proud of it. So I love pointing people to there. as a starting point.
Wonderful. Well, man, oh man, Karen, thank you so much. This has been a delight.
Oh, you're very welcome. I love doing these, and you guys are really, I love your questions. It's so nice to see people who want to talk about this stuff and people who want to hear about it. So anytime you want me to come on and talk again, I'm happy to.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We'll do that again for sure. Stay tuned, listeners. Well, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
If you want more Friends on Horses, you can find us on Facebook at Friends on Horses Podcast.
Check it out for all the latest and greatest horsey news.
You can find us on the web at friendsonhorsespodcast.com.
Or Instagram at friendsonhorses_podcast.
Like what you hear? Help us quit our hay jobs by supporting Friends on Horses. You can support us by rating our episodes on iTunes.
Becoming an ongoing sponsor through Patreon.
Or simply by spreading the word about our show.
Have some feedback?
We'd love to hear from you.
Contact us via email at friendsonhorses@gmail.com.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.